If you've seen a movie about ancient Egypt, you know the visual. Endless lines of slaves dragging colossal stones across a scorching, barren desert, suffering under the lash. And when the sheer scale of that seems too impossible, pop culture often suggests alien intervention or lost magic. But the archaeological reality is different. Nearly everything pop culture teaches us about the Great Pyramid is wrong. The site was actually an organized national supply operation, run by a well-compensated workforce. Thanks to recent archaeological breakthroughs, like buried worker cities and this 4,500-year-old inspector's logbook, we can read the actual blueprints detailing how the Egyptians quarried, calculated, and built the pyramids. These records leave no room for undocumented mysteries. What we find instead is a masterpiece of human administration and logistics. Consider the footprint of the Great Pyramid. It is aligned to true north with an error margin of less than 1/15 of a degree. For a civilization working 4.5 millennia ago, this degree of precision suggests a highly developed system of measurement. Old Kingdom surveyors achieved this without compasses or modern optics. They tracked circumpolar stars, or shadows on the fall equinox, using a tool called a merket, an L-shaped instrument with a suspended plumb line used to establish a perfectly straight north-south meridian. To maintain a consistent slope, architects used a mathematical ratio called the seket. Instead of degrees, they defined a slope by its horizontal run for every 1 royal cubit of vertical rise. For the Great Pyramid, they calculated a run of exactly 5.5 palms, creating a precise 51.84-degree incline. By applying this ratio across millions of blocks, workers at every level could ensure the slopes remained uniform until they met at the apex. This wasn't guesswork. It was the result of standardizing geometry and astronomy across a massive, coordinated worksite. Even with perfect math, the builders faced a physical problem, moving multi-ton granite blocks hundreds of miles overland in an era without wheeled vehicles. This map highlights a discovery made using satellite radar, the Aramat branch. This extinct Nile branch once flowed directly along the foot of the Giza Plateau. The 4,500-year-old shipping logs of an inspector named Marer show that his crews used this waterway to move heavy Aswan granite and Tura limestone directly to an inland harbor at the base of the pyramids. The desert landscape we see today hides an ancient water network that allowed millions of tons of stone to be transported with far less effort than overland hauling would require. Once at the site, the Egyptians used raw mechanical engineering to manage the stones. Most of the pyramid is soft limestone, which was quarried directly on the plateau using copper chisels and wooden wedges. Hard granite required more effort. Workers used heavy dolerite stones to hammer at the bedrock, carving out extraction trenches. They also used fires and cold water to induce thermal cracks, making the stone easier to split. To move these blocks, they used wooden sledges. By pouring water onto the sand in front of the runners, they reduced the pull force required to slide the heavy loads forward. For the final climb, they used a physical ramp system. While the exact layout is still debated, whether straight, spiral, or internal, ramps were the primary method for moving stones to the upper levels. There was no mystery involved in moving the stones, just a sophisticated application of leverage, friction, and physical mechanics. This evidence brings us to a major correction of the historical record: the belief that the Great Pyramid was built by an expendable slave force. South of the Sphinx, archaeologists excavated Hayt el-Garab, also known as the Wall of the Crow. It was a planned urban settlement designed to house and feed a workforce of thousands operating in rotating shifts. The remains here show that the workers were well-fed, with a diet that included prime beef and bread. Skeletal analysis from their cemetery even reveals successfully set fractures and healed amputations, proving they had access to professional medical care. Inside the pyramid itself, the builders left their own marks. Graffiti hidden in the relieving chambers records the names of worker gangs, like the Friends of Khufu. These people were not disposable property. They were a coordinated national workforce executing a state project. When we remove the myths of aliens and slaves, the actual reality reveals a more complex achievement. Organizing a project on this scale required the Egyptian state to coordinate labor, food distribution, and resources across the entire country. The true monument wasn't just the stone structure itself. The massive logistical effort required to build the pyramids is what unified and established the Egyptian state.